You know, they were calling him the unicorn, right? And
Yep.
then he's what Mark Cuban's team now, so he's still gonna have that bias of he might overperform, but we can't he might underperform, but we can't rank him too low.
Right.
But I think he's 61, 62 if we're just talking about his play easily. He's not a top 50. What do they have him at, 40?
They got him at 50. I mean, it's not like necessarily too far off from 60, but again, being in the top
That's
50, like you're like in the echelon of like the greats, right? You're like
right.
basically what I think of 50, you're kind of close to that number 3, number 2 role on your team.
Exactly. Yeah, you're third option. So yeah, that's a big thing because you would put 10 other players in front of him. I mean, hmm.
Sean responded to our last comment. He says, "I think he is tougher and toughness last in the NBA," and that's of course we're talking about. I just cut up this video, so for people that were watching the previous one, this is the next part of it. So I think he's tougher, toughness last in the NBA. His defensive stats aren't really far behind LaMelo. Obviously, he's a better scorer and won't get groomed. I can't accept the fact that LaMelo was given Rookie of the Year when Edwards clearly had a better season. Another hype award. No, I mean we'll look at the stat. I mean, to me, it's more so again a mixture of stats and also hype.
Yeah,
And I do think that LaMelo Ball did deserve that Rookie of the Year. He was balling out for that team. Whereas I believe the Minnesota Timberwolves were kind of still in that position of mediocrity again. Like they just can't seem to get over the fact of mediocrity, even though they have D'Lo, even though they have Karl Anthony Towns, and they have Anthony Edwards, another player that they added to their roster, and they still can't get over this sort of hump. There's a disconnect, in my opinion.
can't
Um,
hear you.
I think I'm losing packets. Give me 1 second. All right, can you hear me now? Oh, think we lost Tyrese. Tyrese, are you there? Man, this is sorry for the technical difficulty. I can't give this word. Okay, we read that already. Hopefully Tyrese can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You're good.
All right. I think my computer just disconnected for some reason. For like a
Yeah,
second.
because the stream kind of went black.
Yeah. Luckily we're back on, so don't worry, guys. We didn't get canceled by Ben Simmons yet. Um,
Not yet.
and played 21 more games than LaMelo. I know that, Sean, and we can blame the injury and things like that. I get that, but I still think that LaMelo Ball did enough to win that Rookie of the Year. Yeah, I cut out for a second. I think Ben Simmons found out my location and is cutting off my internet as we
Detox. He tried
speak.
to detox you. Huh? He tried to detox you.
Exactly. But let's move on to this list. 49, we got Marcus Smart. Last year was 37. I think this is probably the more accurate part for Marcus Smart. Again, my issue with him more specifically is more so the shot chucking. I think he is a
Oh
very
yeah.
big shot chucker for us, and I just don't think it bodes well for what we want to do as a unit. Again, we'll see what Udoka does for us in that aspect, but what do you think of Marcus Smart at 49?
I mean, it's not bad. It's not terrible, but it's like I mean, yeah, that's fair. That's 49. I
Yeah,
would have honestly had him a little higher. I would have had him at 45, 43 to 45.
43, 45. Okay.
Yeah. Because I mean, his previous ring was 37. He wasn't, even though he did, his shot selection is not my favorite thing he does. But I mean, he could get you 20 points and a half, by shooting those threes or. So I think he's a top 43 to 45 player.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. Again, I'm curious to know like how the Celtics will do this next season, but only time will tell for it. Marcus Smart will chuck less shots with Brown back. Yeah, I hope so, man. I understand that he was kind of like the guy that had to take the shots because we were obviously down on number 2, but I think that I would rather much give more spots uh,
Yeah.
to just Tatum, honestly, just taking more shots. But this is what ESPN said is their reason as to why he fell 12 spots. Given Marcus Smart submitted virtual statistic carbon copycat of 1920, his drop seemed to reflect worse health. He missed 24 games primarily due to a February calf strain. The Celtics stepped back as a team. Smart didn't have a long playoff run to showcase his defensive impact. I really don't want to get into the fact that people are missing games, because now you have to start like equating to kind of what Sean was saying about LaMelo Ball. Like, he missed 20 games, and we know that he's a little bit higher on this list. And we'll kind of see him in a couple spots, if I'm not mistaken. But we can't be using injuries, man. Like, to me, it's like, I understand that there's context to the injuries, but
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah. And to go back to Sean's question, Marcus Smart will chuck less shots. I don't think so, man. He was chucking shots with Brown there, and Tatum. So I wouldn't bank on that. I think he's still going to be the same Smart, trying to direct all the guys and trying to be that alpha like a Draymond Green. I think it will kill us. But we'll see, man. He could change, but I just don't think so. I wouldn't bet money on it.
Yeah. 48 Conley, 47 LaMelo Ball. Why he rose from unranked. I mean, obviously we know why he rose from unranked. I think all the rookies should have, for the most part. But again, they saying the having Ball outside of last year's top 100 made sense, given the 19-year-old rookie had just played 13 games against Australian NBL competition. See, this is where the list loses me with some of this stuff. Like you talked about here on this conversation, you just said, and I kind of want to make it bigger for my fan, or for the people that are watching the show, right? Look at what they said here. Reasons from why he rose unranked. It's like, having played outside of last year's top 100 made sense, given the 19-year-old rookie had played just 13 games outside of the Australian national basketball competition the previous season. You can't be using that argument. I'm sorry, you just can't. I'm sorry, you can't be using this argument if you're gonna like add rookies that have not played NBA competition into the list. Like, you can maybe say the G League just because they're part of the affiliate of the NBA, but to me, you can't be using this as an excuse, man. Like, this to me irks me a little bit, because again, it signals that there's a bias to some of the players in this list. And you as a list, you want to be as unbiased as possible. And I just feel like using that as an excuse is like, okay, well, if you use that for Ball, why aren't like Cade Cunningham and like Jalen Green off this list? Like, again, I'm still a big proponent of getting rid of the rookies until they play at least a season. But again, I hate this kind of argument that they're trying to make here. But again, that might just be me being like an old head type of.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
But again, going back to LaMelo Ball, played an awesome season. Got into the playing game. I think LaMelo Ball can really do some damage in the league. Moving up with some of the players. They got James Boatnight. I'm curious to see how those two will play together. You still have Miles Bridges. You have a lot of great players. You still have Scary Terry on the roster. I think LaMelo Ball is going to be.
I wish we could add him.
I know, but I think LaMelo Ball is going to do a tremendous job this next upcoming season. I know Sean's not a huge fan of him. Maybe not a huge fan is the right word, but I know that he would rather much prefer Ant. But you got to also look at LaMelo Ball and the fact that he can do much more than just score. He can be a passer. He can be a rebounder, and he's kind of like what we expected from guys like Ben Simmons coming into the league. Guys that can run the floor, but also kind of space the floor and create their own opportunities themselves. But again, that's just my opinion. What do you think, Tyrese?
No, I think you're right. I mean, he's gonna probably do very well next year. Mm-hmm. I mean, they really have nobody. Gordon Hayward's always hurt. The only thing I just don't understand with them is, why would you resign Terry Rozier?
Yeah.
And you have a guy who you want to make as your cornerstone. It just, I didn't agree with that, but they could be really good.
Okay, I think I shared my screen with you. I think hopefully you can see it.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so you can kind of scroll with me now.
Yep.
46, we got Tobias Harris. I will save the Philly stuff for a little bit later. DeMar DeRozan at 45. Let's just talk about DeRozan at 45, because he did come from a really high rank of 37 spots. And this is just obviously, I think, a little bit due to the hype that he is joining the Chicago Bulls at this point. What do you make of DeMar DeRozan this high in the list?
I think it's fair because he's going to be with a pretty darn good team this year with the pieces they have, and they have more experience. So I think that's fair. I mean, DeMar DeRozan's not a scrub. I mean, he can get you
Yeah.
22 a night. So I think that's good. That's a good spot for him.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how he does with this team. I know I watched B-Ball Breakdown's video and seeing how he can fit in with this team.
Yeah.
But I'm really, really curious, man. Like, it's gonna be one of those scenarios and situations I look at and say, like, okay, is this guy gonna really make a huge impact with the money that he was just given to really change this franchise around and actually go to be like a top 6, even top 5 in the East? Like, that's the minimum I
Oh
think for
yeah.
this team if you're
They're,
trying to, you know, make a atmosphere of you're going to be a championship winning team or an organization.
yeah, they're going to be a top 5 team. Um, in the East. People forget DeMar DeRozan was a 25 points per game scorer in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
So he can play. He's deserving of the money. He's one of the best shooting guards we have in the league. So I think he's going to do very well. I'm very bullish on the Bulls, as I told you before.
Yeah.
I'm very bullish on the Bulls. I see him at a 5th seed.
Yeah. I mean, I think I kind of see, I hope that they are just for Justin's sake and also the city of Chicago, because they have been yearning for this moment since Derrick Rose left. Michael Jordan, they're trying to win championships. So we'll see what happens as we kind of continue to. We'll see what happens with the Chicago Bulls as we look forward. Again, not really too much. Julius Randle at 42. I know my boy Pete is probably really happy, screaming up and down. Maybe he thinks that it's a little too low. He was unranked last season. Obviously, is kind of one of those players. That no one was really expecting much from him. When they traded, when Randall went to New York, a lot of people were like, well, we're still rebuilding. Let's see if we can get like a top pick in the draft. But instead, they kind of bought into the system. They bought in with these veteran and kind of young players like Amon Quickly, Manuel Quickly, Mitchell Robinson. And really kind of did some stuff. And the reason why they said that he kind of rose from the unranked was that Randall had quietly hovered as one of the most productive big men in the league before putting it all together for a magical All-NBA campaign with the Knicks last season. Randall improved across the board, but his playmaking, career best of 6.0 assists per game, and long-range shooting, 41%, changed the magnitude of his impact and turned him into a legitimate franchise player on offense. So, Tyrese, do you think that, Julius Randle, is he kind of a top 45 player, you think?
Yeah, he's for sure a top 45 player. I would even have him at 38. I mean, what he did last year. I mean, he completely shocked everyone of his play last year. Yeah, I would even have him higher. I would have him at 37, 38.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been playing. I think he played really well last season. I think a lot of people are kind of sleeping on the fact that he, I think the playoffs really kind of left a sour taste in everybody's mouth because the Knicks didn't really get past the Hawks, and people were like, well, what was the team going to be next year? But I think we kind of forget that Randall improved tremendously over the past couple years. He was supposed to be the term for him was mishandle for Randall, right? Drafted by the Lakers. A lot of people were like, well, this guy's going to be kind of the savior of the franchise type of player. Didn't live up to that expectation, gets traded, kind of continues his journeyman career, and then ends up in New York and actually plays really well, adopts to a new style of play, trains really hard, worked on different scenarios. Then all of a sudden, you got a much better player. You got a player who won Most Improved Player of the Year, all NBA type of season, and I think we're going to be looking at someone that could potentially be really helping out the franchise from here on out, depending on what they put around him. Because I think they're still in that scenario of they're not sure if they want to go all in on Julius Randle or if they just kind of want to go half in on him as like the guy that they build around.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? They don't know. Yeah, I agree with that because they have Kemba Walker now. So it's like, do you want to go all in on Kemba Walker, or you want to go all in the hometown kid, or you want to go all in on Julius Randle? You're gonna go with selling tickets, or you're gonna go with talent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's they have some other pieces they have to construct, but they got a lot of they have a good amount of salary cap, I think, right? They don't really have too much on the books, so they can potentially get a star there potentially of next year as a summer free agency. So we'll be on the lookout. I will be on the lookout for the Knicks next year.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with them. I'm curious to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think that Julius Randle should be someone that the Knicks build around, or do you think that they should be looking somewhere else? Let me know in the comment section down below. As we kind of continue looking on this list, Sabonis at 40, definitely kind of put on a great All-NBA All-Star season. More so All-Star season because, he finally was an All-Star in 2020. Played really well. I think that he should honestly be top 35. He's kind of shown to me that he's a lot better. Way better than a lot of players in this list at this current point. Pascal Siakam had a huge drop-off. And I know that, we can make the excuses for him or we can't make the excuses for him. But the fact that, you got Sabonis, you got like Pascal Siakam above him. You got Draymond Green above him. I know Draymond Green adds a lot of value and stuff like that, but I just think at this point, Sabonis is a much more complete player than Draymond Green.
Right? Oh, yeah. Hands down. I don't know what they were thinking right there, but then again, that goes with bias. Like, you're going to put a guy who's never won over a 3-time champ. So, I take this whole list with a grain of salt. Yeah. Once we get to the top 5, it's kind of like, okay, or top 10, I would say it's like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, Shai Gilgeous above him as well. Shai Gilgeous had, a pretty good season, but again, not really, the team output didn't really match the rating. Again, DeAndre Ayton, 52, now at 35. Again, the reason I talked about this way before, the reason why they brought in Chris Paul, in my opinion, of course, is to see like what DeAndre Ayton can be with a great point guard. And someone that really knows how to dish the dimes.
Yep.
But I think Sabonis is better than him. I think Sabonis is better than Fox. LaVine.
You think Sabonis is better than Ayton?
I think Sabonis is better than Ayton. Ayton to me, like, I think he proved in the playoffs that he still has a lot of room to grow. Where I feel like Sabonis is already kind of, if not, maybe can go even higher than where he's at right now. Ayton right now, he showed to me that like when you're posted up against a guy like Middleton, and instead of trying to kind of back him down and then kind of work on the post hook, he takes like a fadeaway hook shot on Middleton, and that just can't happen. That can't be a top 35 player. I know that he improved as an individual. He improved a lot, but I just can't have Sabonis below Ayton.
Well, you have to remember too, Sabonis has been in the league a little longer than Ayton. So, I mean, talent-wise, if you said which player do I want on my team or my franchise as center for the next 10 years, I'm going DeAndre Ayton. But in this scenario, I would still say Ayton.
The only reason why I'm hesitant on like putting Ayton there is because I still think he does have room to grow. But my question is like, if you're the number 1 pick, he is the number 1 pick overall in the draft that he was in with Luka Doncic and Trae Young. He has to be like, if not remotely close to what Sabonis is, as someone that was taken like in the later lottery. Like he has to be better. And when you take a guy number 1, that shows to me that he has to be either the number 1 or number 2 option on the team. And right now he's number 3. And you can make the argument that he's going to grow into that number 2 role. He can potentially grow into a number 1 role. But currently right now, what I'm seeing is that Ayton is nowhere near ready to be a top or to be a second option player on the team. At least right now. I mean, next year maybe he proves me wrong, but at least currently.
Yeah, but you got to remember too, Sabonis, man, I watched some games of his. He gets in a lot of foul trouble. That's one thing in his game that he needs to work on. Is I know it's good being aggressive, but there's just some fouls, dude. He could pick up 4 fouls and very quickly. But that's the only thing with him. But Ayton, he gets in foul trouble too, but he not as bad as Sabonis. Sabonis can get in foul trouble very quick.
Interesting. Okay. We kind of have like a little toss up. You got Sean. I know he's more of a Gonzaga bias, so you can talk to that. But
the Gonzaga boy, huh?
But I do think that he does have a point with Sabonis. He says, "How can you be one of the 24, 28 best players in the game, all-star, and be 40? Sabonis is consistently getting better every year, and he should be above every guy we've seen ahead of him. It's a toss up between the two
Yeah, but
IMO.
you have to remember too who the Pacers have. That's a real ball dominant player. Like what did Ayton average last year? Let me see his stats just to let me see.
So Ayton last year averaged uh he averaged 14.4 points per game, 10.6 rebounds, 1.4 assists. Shooting 20%
Yeah,
from three, 77 from the free throw line, 62% from the field. And then if you look at a guy like Sabonis, who we've talked about before on this channel, he averaged 20 points per game this last season. Again, I talked about this with Sabonis when I was talking about the All-Star ranking, because this was kind of like the big talking point with a guy like him, is more so like this guy improved each and every year. If you can check his stats out, 5.9,
but honestly,
11.6, 14.1, 18.5, 20.3. With Ayton, it's kind of stayed
yeah.
remotely the same.
Well,
Kind
you
of.
have to remember in 2019 they didn't have Chris Paul. He averaged 18, but only played 38 games. So imagine if he would have played the whole 80 or 70 games, he would have averaged more than Sabonis already. And Sabonis has been in the league longer. So on the Pacers, there's nobody there. Who do they have? Summoners. Who else is on that squad?
You
Who's a
got
point
T.J.
guard?
Warren, Malcolm Brogdon. You got Caris
Yeah.
LeVert. I mean, they got
Well,
a
yeah.
they have a competent squad, but again, like for me, it's like Ayton did have that season last year with Chris Paul. I understand he didn't, the league didn't play that many games like they usually do, but at the same time, you average 14 points per game. You average kind of almost near your bottom rebounding in his third year. I mean, these two guys are not far away from each other, right? Um,
We have to remember his minutes went down a little bit last year.
I mean,
It's only his second year.
yeah, it's just gonna be his fourth year for Ayton.
Really? I thought it's his. Oh yeah, yeah.
Because he was drafted in that year with Trae Young and Luca,
hmm
and then obviously you had the COVID year, and
He
then
kind of took a step back though with Chris Paul, but I think if Chris Paul wasn't there and it was just Booker, he would average 20 easy. He averaged it in second year almost, and he only played 38 games.
mm-hmm. Sean, you said look at the assists and rebounds. Ayton is bigger, but Sabonis is a better rebounder and way better passer playmaker.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll agree with that. He's a way better rebounder, but he doesn't have soft hands like Ayton though. Ayton has soft hands in the paint, man.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I think these two, if we're going like career, like who will be better, I think that to me is still a toss up. But if we're talking like from last season to this season, there's no question that Sabonis should be higher than a lot of these guys on the list, at least to me.
I've seen some plays where Ayton could just dominate for like a 3 months for a 3 minute stint. I don't see that. Sabonis, he's kind of like he spreads out through the whole game. But like Ayton, he could get 15 in a quarter.
But I think it's better though to be able to spread out through. I mean,
Well, it's good because he has nobody there. But like I'm saying, with the talent he has now, like that's just that's very good.
so I mean, imagine if Sabonis did have the talent around him. Could you make the argument that maybe he might be better than Ayton
Well,
if he had like the right point guard? Like, let's say you replace Ayton and put in Sabonis in this for this system. Like, do you think that the Phoenix Suns would be a much better team in the NBA Finals from last year?
I don't know. That's tough to say. I don't know, man, because you could be very talented, but you don't cohort with the players that you're on the floor with. I don't know if I don't know, but I know Aiton clicks with those guys. I can't say if it was vice versa because Sabonis is a completely different type of person. He comes from a different background, so I don't know how that would mesh. If it was reverse, for all we know, he might only average 10 points a game.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
I think Ayton just mixes well culturally, but I don't know if Sabonis would if we reversed it how this scenario is. I don't know if he'll do what he's doing now with
yeah.
those two.
I mean, my thing is, I think he will be. I just have no doubt that Sabonis could be a great fit in Phoenix. If they were to do the flip flop or trade away and switch those guys out, because I think that he's a stronger dude, and I think the biggest thing for me is that I think Sabonis does a much better job of stretching out the floor than I believe Ayton does. You know, Ayton shooting 20%,
Oh yeah.
where like Sabonis is shooting a little bit higher than that at, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he shot that at like a 32% clip. Like just a lot better.
How long has he been in the league?
So Sabonis has been in the league for 1, 2, 3,
Oh
4,
yeah,
5. So
one,
this is gonna be his sixth
two,
season,
four,
basically.
five. Yeah, he's had way more experience. I mean, this is barely Aiton's what, third year?
This is gonna be his 4th year coming up. So it's almost similar in my opinion, but
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
but again, let us know in the comment section down below. Are you guys team Ayton or are you guys team Sabonis? Let me know in the comment section down below. Sean, I already know what you are, so you're good. But let me know in the comment section what you guys think of that. And we'll kind of talk about maybe just kind of like a quick rapid fire, and then we'll kind of move on to these other players.
Okay.
Yeah, we got Zach LaVine at 33, Klay Thompson at 32, John Moran at 31, Russell Westbrook at 29, Ben Simmons at 28, Jaylen Brown at 27, Brandon Ingram at 26. Now, is there anybody on that list that you're like maybe should be higher than them, should be lower? Like, what's your opinion on those players that you're seeing on the list?
Uh, I think Jaylen Brown. I think he should be higher than 27.
You think he should be a top 25?
Top 20.
You think top 20? All right, we'll look at the list for the top 20.
No, I mean honestly, if you think about it, right? Like Jaylen Brown is one of the best two-way player. He probably is the best two-way player consistently we have. Like no slacking. He's he slacks off a little bit, but he's a complete player, man. Like he's complete. I would not have Brandon Ingram in front of him. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think Brandon Ingram, right? Like he's still in that. Like he improved, but he's still in that phase of like. I'm trying to think of like who that like Jimmy Garoppolo for the Patriots like a long time ago, maybe not that long ago, but like people were kind of saying like yeah, like they were saying like this guy is gonna be the next guy. He's he has the next Tom Brady, all this other stuff. Yeah, and then ends up just being kind of like an average player. And the fact that like guys like Russell Westbrook or like John Morant or Klay Thompson, maybe not, but like the fact that John Morant is not there, like at least a little bit higher to me, I think is a little bit laughable. But again, it just might be the culture that John Morant. But I mean, to be fair, they did make it to the playing game, so I can't really be too harsh on the guy like John Morant. I know he's not the best shooter, like 3-point shooter in the world, but man, it is hard to see guys like John Morant down the list, and then you got guys like, Ben Simmons and like Brandon Ingram ahead of him.
Well, it comes with bias too. Like a lot of these guys, they're in the spotlight heavy, like Ben Simmons, his agent's Rich Paul. He has a max contract. He's dated a Jenner, so all that stuff into the equation plays a role, in my opinion. That's why he's ranked so high. But Ben Simmons, to me, is like a 34 rank.
Yeah, I mean, let's see like Ben Simmons here. So this is what they said about why he fell 12 spots, because he originally was at 16 last year. So they said Ben Simmons major strides as a defender last season and turned into a two-way impact measured 17th in the NBA according to RPM. However, his limitations as a shooter and resulting apparent lack of confidence came back to haunt him in the 76ers playoffs. And again, that's kind of always been the situation with a guy like Ben Simmons, has been the confidence, has been the shooting. We've been talking about it for the past 3 or 4 years. Again, we'll talk about him and his situation with what Gilbert Arenas said, because I think Gilbert Arenas was talking some cap. He was capping hella on that.
He should have had a hat on his head that day.
Yeah, I mean it was cap, but again, I think Ben Simmons should be a little bit higher. Honestly, Sean, I disagree with you with the Russell Westbrook thing. I think Russell Westbrook is at least a top 26 player.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we can criticize him for taking all the shots from Rui Hachimura. I know that's kind of where the bias from you is coming from, but you have to remember with Russell Westbrook, he's still averaging a triple-double. He's still getting his stats. He's still getting people the ball. Is it at the detriment of he can rebound? Is it at the detriment of the development of your players? Yeah, and that's the reason why you traded him. So I don't think you can be mad at him anymore. I think what you could look at it is like maybe these guys can get the confidence of Russell Westbrook and playing that style. But again, I understand like where your frustration's coming from with a guy like Russell Westbrook. Should we move on to the top 25?
Yes, we should.
Tar
Let's see
Heel,
what we got.
shout out to Tar Heel Nation. I didn't see you in the chat. Hopefully, I didn't miss any of your chats, but he said the pick of Russ in a dress downgrades him. It's not my style, but hey, some people like it. Westbrook is a brick, though. I have never loved his game. He has no fear of taking shots, even though he can't make them. You know, I think that he's going to change a lot of perspective this season. I think the Lakers are going to be fully like a much better team. I know Tyrese disagrees with me on that, and we've talked about it before, but we'll definitely talk about it when we do our preseason rankings and predictions. So I'm really excited when we finally do that. When we get closer to the NBA season, maybe watch a little bit of the preseason games, and then we can kind of get our not voting, but just kind of like what we think about the team's power ranking style. Let's go 25 through 6 really quick. Rudy Gobert 25, Karl-Anthony Towns at 24. Again, I will give you this one, Sean. I think Karl-Anthony Towns should be ranked maybe in the top 30, top 35. Karl-Anthony Towns last year, I know he had a lot of COVID issues. I know that his mother died of COVID, so I can't really be too like harsh on like, the reason why he took a step back, but at the same time, he just hasn't really progressed to the player that I know he can be. And it's the same thing.
Really, I sorry to cut you off, but man, I gotta say this. I just don't see why people are so bullish on Karl-Anthony Towns. Like, he just doesn't have a motor. Like, people mistake his like college motor. Like in college at Kentucky, he had a motor, man, but he just doesn't seem like he has that drive anymore, like how he did in Kentucky.
I think to me, when it comes to Karl-Anthony Towns, I think he's kind of, and I think Jimmy Butler kind of rightly said it, is that these guys were comfortable with the NBA lifestyle and kind of like, they kind of appreciate the perks of it rather than working your butt off to get to that championship and aspiration. When you're in high school, when you're in college, like you're grinding your butt you're grinding because you haven't earned anything yet. You haven't earned the money yet. You haven't earned the kind of the clout or the fame from it. And you have to work for it. And I just feel like right now, Karl-Anthony Towns has kind of, at least in his first couple of years when he was in the league, he's really just lived off of that and hasn't really progressed his game to where I think he should be right now currently. And it's disappointing to see.
Yeah, it really is. But, I mean, he's still young. I mean, he can turn it around, hopefully. But like you say, man, that lifestyle is real.
Yep.
He got a max extension. I think he's making like $140 million or $125 million at a young age like that with his girlfriend Jordan Woods.
Woods.
He's not worried about the game right now. Like, come on, man. Like, seriously. Yeah. He could get 20 and 10 in his sleep, but he's not going to try to get 28 and 14 or 15 boards. Like, he's not hungry no more. Like, he's made it already. He could retire tomorrow, and his great-great-grandchildren, if he has kids, will be fine. Like, he's good. I think it's that lifestyle.
Yeah, it definitely is that lifestyle. And I just think that, when it comes to it, you want to see him progress to like I said, I thought that he could have been really good. Another player I kind of missed like the mark on in some regards, just because I thought that he could be like this, like, offensive weapon where he can shoot threes, but also be in the low block, dominating with post moves, like Joel Embiid almost. But, I think this last couple of years, I've kind of exposed a lot of people to kind of his style and how it just doesn't work in some regards. Or maybe not even his style, but more so like I think the work ethic and just kind of like what you see from a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns. Again, dating, a woman with a lot of drama, for better or for worse, it is what it is.
She has a lot of baggage that came with her already. So, I mean, that's kind of like the Ben Simmons situation when he was with the Jenner. I mean,
and that's why I have to keep
following him everywhere still.
And that's why I have to keep the same energy when it comes to a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns. I have to do it with Ben Simmons. I have to do it with Karl-Anthony Towns because I can't like condone Ben Simmons for what he does, and then Karl-Anthony Towns is doing the same thing. So again, my frustration with the guy like Karl-Anthony Towns is just like the fact that he is not committed right now to the game in the same way that some of his other peers are. But again, we'll talk a little bit later about that stuff. But let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys make of Karl-Anthony Towns at 24? Is that too high, too low? Let us know in the comment section down below. Now, 23 is where we get a little bit interesting. We got Zion Williamson, ranked at 23. Last year was 19. The question that this article is asking is, what kind of leap can Williamson take this on the defensive end? Williamson has proven to be an absolute force on the offensive side early in his young career, but hasn't been the same force on the defensive end, even though he would be coming into the league. Williamson hasn't averaged a full block or steal per game in either for 2 seasons. Growth on that end will be the difference between a Pelicans playoff berth and another trip to the lottery. Not Ben Simmons, at Zion Williamson at 23. Too high, too low, just right?
Too. I would say that's a little bit too low. I honestly would have him ranked higher. I think he's top 17 player.
You think he's a top 17 player? I could see it. The only concern I have for him is like, what measurements is he going to take this season when it comes to like, especially with the issues with the Pelicans organization itself, where his family members have gone on the record and said that, yeah, we don't want to play here anymore. Like that to me is where I worry about him, is like, is he going to like hurt his like stats? Is he going to hurt himself in terms of like the perception of him if he decides to maybe do the James Harden route?
Honestly, I don't think he'll do the James Harden route just because he's a younger type of player. Honestly, Zion's kind of like a shyer person. Like he doesn't really like the spotlight and stuff like James Harden. Like he's barely getting into the league. Like I think if people in his camp are talking, it's going to be them. It's not going to be from his mouth.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to try to sit out. I think he's going to try to prove himself to other teams that he's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he, we'll see what happens with his kind of next couple years. Obviously, the Pelicans have become an absolute tumultuous mess. And I hope that we can see some sort of growth and improvement from the Pelicans, but I just don't believe it.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I just think he's he can't afford to lose value by sitting out. He's just too young to sit out, and he hasn't achieved any awards like MVP. He's on the right track, but he's just unproven yet. He might be a bust next year for all we know, or the next 5 years. We already know what we had with James Harden. Everybody knew he was a superstar. He got MVP, putting up these numbers, went to a Western Conference Finals. With Zion, I don't think he'll pull a James how James just recently did, in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Again, I'm curious to know what you guys think of Zion Williamson. Is he too high? Is he too low? Let us know in the comment section down below.
Zion was ranked 19th in 2020. Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, I agree. I think that was pretty good. I think that was a good ranking for him. I think this year he should be 17. So yeah, I honestly agree with the 19th rank last year, personally.
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing is like, I want to see Zion. A lot of these players that are kind of entering in the top 25. Again, this is like the elite dawns of the NBA. This is like, basically, you are the person. You're the dude. You're almost like close to that number one spot, if not the number one spot. And so, my question for the Pelicans is, you have Brandon Ingram, you have Zion Williamson. Both of these guys obviously couldn't really coexist with one another so far. I mean, maybe another coaching change could help that. But again, I'm curious to see if that will be the case. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's going on with him. But I think he's a very talented guy. He's a really talented player. Sky's the limit for him. The only concern I have about him is his weight. If he could bring that down a little bit, like his fat, I think he could be really good, man. He could be LeBron James, like, in my opinion. He has the same type of game of driving to the rack. If he could just work on his shot, he could be he could be a top 3 player, man.
Yeah.
He's very talented, in my opinion.
And then Sean, you go, just don't know how they can say he took a step back or someone stepped over him. I don't know how he should be. I don't know if he should be 19 or 20, but I don't know how you can rank him worse. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing. I think that he started off too high. I think they realized that, it was kind of the Zion hype, right? Because
Yeah.
they had Lonzo Ball still. They had basically the same roster, just minus Lonzo, or just with Lonzo Ball. And a lot of people are thinking, yeah, this is going to be the year. This is going to be the time where you see the Pelicans fully embrace and take on the NBA playoffs. And they obviously petered and faltered off tremendously. And now they're just kind of looking for answers at this point. And we'll see what happens, man. Again, I think that at this point, Zion is probably ranked where he should have been last year. Maybe 25 should have been more reasonable for him. But we'll see as the season goes on if he does kind of keep that 23 rank, or does he go higher or lower? That's kind of like, I know that's kind of a fence sitter type of response, but
We'll see.
I just really don't know about Zion. Like it all depends on like where the Pelicans kind of build in their roster.
As far as just really quick, as far as Zion, I think he's always going to be the type of player he is. I mean, if the Pelicans are bad, the Pelicans are bad, but I don't think that defines him as a player from a talent perspective. So I think he can be, I think to going back to what I said, I think he's a top 17 player, and I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you for that, Tyrese.